If this message appears before you right now, it's because your nervous system has been broadcasting a frequency that only becomes visible when your consciousness is ready to transcend anxiety from a place of deep understanding rather than temporary management. The constant worry, the racing thoughts, the physical tension that anxiety creates in your body, none of it is evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It's your system calling for the quantum reset that restores your natural state of calm presence. This quantum reset method operates through what neuroscientists call coherent nervous system entrainment, a state where your entire bioelectric field reorganizes from chaos to coherence in minutes rather than months of traditional anxiety management. But here's what they don't understand. This reset isn't achieved through technique or willpower. It emerges when consciousness recognizes anxiety as temporary interference rather than permanent condition, allowing your nervous system to remember its inherent capacity for unshakable peace. The synchronicity that brought you to this understanding means your awareness has evolved beyond seeing anxiety as an enemy to be fought and toward recognizing it as a messenger, pointing you back to the calm presence that exists beneath every worried thought. Your nervous system has been preparing for this recognition through every anxious moment, developing the sensitivity needed to distinguish between temporary mental turbulence and the eternal stillness of your essential nature. Something in the cosmic intelligence recognized that you're ready for the reset method that doesn't just provide temporary relief from anxious symptoms, but establishes inner peace as your baseline state, regardless of external circumstances. This isn't another coping strategy or relaxation technique. This is recognition of how consciousness can instantly reorganize chaotic neural patterns into coherent calm through alignment with your true nature, right now, without changing anything about your thoughts or trying to feel different. Can you sense the awareness that observes whatever anxiety might be present? There's a part of you that remains completely calm even when anxious thoughts are active. This observer consciousness is the doorway into the quantum reset that transforms your nervous system from reactive patterns to responsive wisdom. You've been experiencing moments lately where anxiety dissolves suddenly without obvious cause, haven't you? Brief glimpses of profound calm that seem to emerge from nowhere, demonstrating that peace isn't something you need to create through effort, but something you can access through recognition. These spontaneous resets have been preparing your consciousness to stabilize in the natural tranquility that anxiety can never actually disturb. The reason this reset activation is happening now isn't coincidental. The electromagnetic conditions supporting inner peace are more accessible than they have been in generations, but only for those whose awareness has been refined enough through anxious experiences to appreciate the profound relief that emerges when calm becomes your natural state, rather than an occasional escape from worry. The anxiety you carry feels like it lives in your body as much as your mind, doesn't it? That tight sensation in your chest, the knot in your stomach, the tension across your shoulders that seems to anticipate threats that may never materialize. Your nervous system has learned to stay activated, scanning for problems and maintaining readiness for challenges that exist more in imagination than reality. Your anxious thoughts seem to have a life of their own, cycling through the same worries with persistent intensity, that feels completely involuntary. You might find yourself rehearsing conversations that haven't happened, imagining worst-case scenarios that probably never will occur, or feeling overwhelmed by responsibilities that seemed manageable just hours before. The mental chatter creates an exhausting internal environment that feels impossible to quiet through willpower alone. Sleep has become complicated because your mind struggles to settle when your head hits the pillow. Either racing thoughts keep you awake, or you fall asleep only to wake at 3 a.m. with anxiety already activated, as if your nervous system forgot how to rest completely. Even when you manage adequate sleep, you often wake feeling like your system never fully relaxed during the night. Certain situations trigger immediate physical responses that seem disproportionate to actual threat levels. Your heart might race during normal social interactions. Your breathing becomes shallow when facing routine decisions, or you feel overwhelmed in environments that others navigate easily. These responses happen so quickly that conscious thinking can't prevent them, leaving you feeling betrayed by your own nervous system. You've probably noticed that anxiety affects your body in ways that create additional worry. Digestive issues during stressful periods, headaches that seem related to mental tension, or physical fatigue that appears when anxiety has been particularly intense. The connection between anxious thoughts and physical symptoms creates cycles where worry about symptoms generates more anxiety. The worst part might be how anxiety interferes with activities and relationships that should bring joy. Social gatherings become performance evaluations, where you monitor your behavior for signs of awkwardness. Creative projects get postponed because perfectionist anxiety makes starting feel overwhelming. Even relaxing activities like watching movies or reading books can be interrupted by worried thoughts demanding attention. Perhaps most frustrating is how temporary the relief feels when you do find moments of calm. Meditation might provide 20 minutes of peace. Exercise could clear your head for an hour, but anxiety seems to return with the same intensity as before. The temporary nature of these solutions can create discouragement about whether lasting peace is possible for someone with your particular nervous system sensitivity. You might have developed elaborate strategies for managing anxiety, breathing techniques, thought-stopping methods, distraction approaches that require constant vigilance and energy to maintain. Living with anxiety can feel like having a second job where you're always monitoring and managing your internal state instead of simply experiencing life naturally. Even when external circumstances are objectively fine, your nervous system sometimes generates anxious sensations that seem to emerge from nowhere. This disconnect between your actual situation and your internal experience can be confusing and isolating, especially when others suggest that positive thinking should resolve feelings that seem to have biological rather than psychological origins. Every moment of anxiety, every racing thought, every physical sensation of nervous activation you've experienced has been your consciousness exploring what it feels like to believe in separation from the profound peace that is your essential nature. Your anxiety wasn't evidence of mental dysfunction or emotional inadequacy. It was awareness temporarily forgetting its inherent calm while developing the sensitivity needed to recognize and appreciate authentic tranquility when it reveals itself. The frustration you've felt with temporary anxiety management techniques tells a perfect story of preparation for lasting transformation. Breathing exercises that provided brief relief but didn't prevent the next anxious episode, were teaching you to distinguish between imposed calm and natural peace. Relaxation methods that required constant effort were demonstrating that sustainable tranquility emerges through recognition rather than technique. Think of how a tree's roots grow stronger by weathering storms, developing the flexibility and depth needed to remain stable during future challenges. Your nervous system has been developing resilience through anxious experiences, building the capacity to recognize the difference between temporary mental weather and the unchanging ground of peaceful awareness that exists beneath all psychological activity. Every attempt to control anxiety through mental effort was preparing you to understand that lasting calm emerges when consciousness stops fighting against anxious thoughts and starts recognizing the awareness that remains peaceful regardless of mental content. The exhaustion from trying to manage anxiety through willpower was consciousness calling your attention to the effortless peace that becomes available through recognition rather than control. The timing of your anxiety experiences corresponds perfectly with periods when your sensitivity was developing enough to eventually appreciate the profound relief available through quantum reset. What seemed like escalating worry was actually consciousness building the contrast needed to recognize authentic peace when it stabilizes as your natural state, rather than temporary escape from mental turbulence. Your nervous system has been like an instrument gradually tuning to the frequency of inner peace. The discordant notes of anxiety, the cacophony of worried thoughts, the physical tension that seemed to define your baseline state. All of it was the preparation phase before discovering the harmonious calm that emerges when consciousness aligns with its peaceful essence. The resistance you felt toward accepting anxiety as a permanent aspect of your personality has been your deeper wisdom, recognizing that worry isn't your true nature but temporary programming that can be released through understanding rather than management. Your nervous system has been preparing to operate from peace rather than protection, from trust rather than vigilance. Even your concern about whether you'll ever feel truly calm hasn't been doubt. It's been consciousness ensuring that when peace does stabilize, it will be based on genuine recognition of your essential nature rather than another temporary technique that eventually loses effectiveness. Something profound is shifting in your nervous system right now. Can you feel it? That subtle but unmistakable sense of settling, of your entire bioelectric field beginning to organize around calm rather than activation, of space opening around thoughts that previously felt urgent and overwhelming. This isn't forced relaxation or temporary relief. This is the quantum reset beginning to restore your natural state of peaceful presence. Your neural pathways are literally reorganizing as this recognition deepens. Brain networks that have been hyperactive in scanning for threats are beginning to settle into coherent patterns that support responsive awareness rather than reactive anxiety. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, is recalibrating to distinguish between actual danger and mental projections, allowing your nervous system to rest in the present moment. The electromagnetic field around your heart is expanding as peaceful consciousness stabilizes in your awareness. When your heart rhythm achieves coherence, it generates organized energy patterns that communicate safety and calm to every system in your body. This heart-brain coherence creates the foundation for the quantum reset that transforms anxiety from persistent background activation to occasional manageable responses to real situations requiring attention. Your entire autonomic nervous system is beginning to remember its capacity for sustainable calm, rather than chronic preparation for imaginary threats. The parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for rest and restoration, is beginning to operate as your primary mode rather than the brief interludes between anxious activation that have characterized your recent experience. Notice how your breathing is naturally becoming slower and deeper without conscious effort to control it. This is your respiratory system responding to the peaceful signals generated by consciousness when it stops identifying with anxious thoughts and starts recognizing the awareness that observes all mental activity with perfect equanimity. But here's what's building in your nervous system that will completely transform your relationship to worry and peace. The recognition that anxiety isn't evidence of mental malfunction. It's consciousness temporarily forgetting its naturally calm essence and now preparing to remember through the magnificent process of quantum nervous system reset. The reason this reset recognition is becoming available now is because your awareness has developed enough sensitivity through anxious experiences to appreciate the profound relief that emerges when peace becomes your baseline state, rather than something you occasionally access between worried episodes. The quantum reset doesn't just affect your individual nervous system. It creates coherence patterns that influence the stress levels and emotional state of everyone in your environment. When you stabilize in authentic calm, people around you naturally feel more relaxed, children become less reactive, and even pets seem to rest more easily in your presence. Feel this settling presence building in your awareness as we explore the specific method that allows consciousness to reset chaotic neural patterns to coherent calm in minutes rather than months. The understanding that will reveal why some people maintain unshakable peace despite challenging circumstances, while others experience anxiety even when external conditions are optimal. 2 years ago, anxiety controlled every aspect of my life despite trying every management technique available. Cognitive behavioral therapy, meditation apps, breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, mindfulness practices. I had become an expert in anxiety management strategies, yet the worry and physical tension continued to dominate my daily experience with exhausting persistence. The cruel irony was that my efforts to control anxiety were creating more anxiety. Every technique became another thing to monitor and perfect. Every moment of calm became a performance to maintain, rather than a natural state to enjoy. I was living in constant evaluation of my internal state, which created additional mental activity that fed the very anxiety I was trying to resolve. During panic attacks, nothing I had learned seemed accessible. The breathing techniques that worked during calm moments became impossible when my nervous system was fully activated. The cognitive strategies that made sense intellectually couldn't compete with the physical sensations of fear that seemed to bypass rational thinking entirely. The breakthrough came during what felt like my worst anxiety episode, when something in me simply gave up the effort to manage or control the anxious sensations. Instead of trying to make the anxiety go away, I became curious about the awareness that was observing the anxiety. In that moment of shifting attention from anxious content to peaceful observer, something extraordinary happened. I realized that beneath all the mental noise, there was a part of me that had never been anxious, a calm presence that observed worried thoughts with the same equanimity it observed peaceful thoughts. This observer consciousness wasn't affected by the content of mental activity any more than a movie screen is affected by the images projected upon it. The quantum reset that followed was immediate and profound. Not because the anxious thoughts disappeared completely, but because my relationship to them transformed so dramatically that they lost their power to create suffering. I discovered that I could remain peacefully present while anxious thoughts continued their activity, like watching clouds pass through an unchanging sky. Within weeks of learning to rest in observer consciousness rather than identifying with mental content, my entire anxiety experience transformed. Situations that previously triggered overwhelming worry became opportunities to practice returning to peaceful presence. Physical symptoms of anxiety dissolved naturally when consciousness stopped resisting them and started observing them with friendly curiosity. But the most remarkable change was discovering that my presence had become calming to others. Family conversations became more peaceful, work meetings flowed more smoothly, and even strangers seemed to relax when interacting with me. The quantum reset had created a field of coherent calm that influenced everyone in my environment. The recognition that changed everything was understanding that I wasn't someone who had anxiety that needed to be cured. I was peaceful awareness, temporarily believing that anxious thoughts defined my identity. The reset happened when consciousness remembered its essential calm nature and stopped taking mental activity so personally. Now I use every moment of mental agitation as an opportunity to return to peaceful presence. Anxious thoughts still arise occasionally, but they pass through awareness like weather through sky, creating temporary experiences rather than defining my fundamental state of being. If you're exhausted from managing anxiety and ready to discover the peaceful presence that exists beneath all mental activity, if you've sensed that true calm comes from recognition rather than technique, if you've had glimpses of the observer consciousness that remains unaffected by thought content, then you're ready for the quantum reset that makes inner peace your natural state. Subscribe and keep walking this path of healing with us, not just to this channel, but to this recognition that you are not someone who has anxiety. You are peaceful awareness temporarily believing in the reality of worried thoughts. Here's what psychology, psychiatry, and even mindfulness-based approaches don't want you to understand about the quantum reset method. Every technique that promises to help you manage anxiety better actually reinforces the fundamental misunderstanding that you are someone who has anxiety rather than peaceful awareness, temporarily identifying with anxious thoughts. This identification itself maintains the neural patterns that generate worry and physical tension. The revolutionary recognition that makes quantum reset effortless is this: anxiety isn't something that happens to consciousness. Anxiety is what consciousness experiences when it believes it is separate from the peaceful awareness that is its essential nature. Your nervous system creates anxious sensations and worried thoughts based on this fundamental case of mistaken identity. When you recognize yourself as the peaceful observer of all mental activity, rather than the anxious thoughts themselves, your nervous system receives completely different instructions about how to respond to challenging situations. Instead of preparing for threats that exist primarily in imagination, your body begins operating from the coherent calm that emerges when consciousness knows its essential peaceful nature. This obliterates every approach to anxiety that maintains separation between the observer and the observed, between consciousness and mental content, between peaceful awareness and anxious thoughts. Your worried thoughts aren't happening to a separate you. Your worried thoughts are consciousness temporarily exploring what it feels like to believe in separation from peace, while never actually becoming separate from its calm essence. The difference between anxiety management and quantum reset is this. Anxiety management tries to control or eliminate worried thoughts while maintaining the belief that you are someone who has problems with anxiety. Quantum reset recognizes that there is no separate you who has anxiety. There is only peaceful consciousness temporarily believing in the reality of mental projections about future threats that exist primarily in imagination. When you understand this, you realize that anxious thoughts aren't evidence of mental dysfunction. They're consciousness exploring what it feels like to believe in separation from peace while maintaining its unlimited capacity for calm presence. The reset happens when awareness stops taking anxious thoughts personally and starts recognizing them as temporary weather patterns in the vast sky of peaceful consciousness. The access to permanent calm comes not through managing anxiety better, but through recognizing that the one who would manage anxiety is itself a mental construct, and what you actually are is the peaceful awareness in which all mental activity appears and disappears without disturbing your essential tranquility. The quantum reset is already occurring in your nervous system right now, and the changes happening in your awareness confirm that consciousness has recognized its essential peaceful nature beneath the temporary mental activity that creates anxious experiences. Your sleep patterns are beginning to transform as your nervous system learns to settle into genuine rest rather than vigilant monitoring for potential threats. You might notice falling asleep more easily or waking less frequently during the night with anxious thoughts already activated. When you do wake during the night, there's often a natural calm present rather than immediate mental activation. Situations that previously triggered automatic anxiety responses are beginning to feel more manageable. Instead of your nervous system immediately preparing for worst-case scenarios, there's often a pause where you can choose conscious response rather than reactive worry. This isn't because you're controlling your thoughts more effectively. It's because consciousness is remembering its naturally peaceful state. Physical symptoms of anxiety are dissolving as your body receives coherent signals from a nervous system that's operating from calm rather than chronic activation. Digestive issues related to stress, tension, headaches, or muscle tightness in your shoulders and jaw are naturally releasing as peaceful presence becomes your baseline rather than occasional relief from worried states. The mental chatter that previously seemed constant and involuntary is beginning to have more space around it. Worried thoughts still arise, but they don't immediately capture your complete attention the way they used to. There's often an awareness present that can observe anxious thinking without getting caught in the content of the thoughts. Perhaps most significantly, you're beginning to trust your natural responses to situations rather than second-guessing every decision through anxious analysis. When challenges arise, there's often an intuitive knowing about how to respond that doesn't require elaborate mental preparation or worry about all possible outcomes. People around you may be commenting on a change in your presence, even if they can't identify exactly what's different. Family members might notice that conversations feel more relaxed. Coworkers could mention that meetings run more smoothly when you're present, or friends might seek your company when they're feeling stressed, because your presence naturally creates calm. But here's what makes this moment in your healing journey critically urgent. The collective human nervous system is undergoing a transformation where anxiety-based functioning is being replaced by coherent, peaceful presence. Those who learn to access quantum reset now are participating in this evolutionary shift and establishing neural patterns that become easier to maintain as more people stabilize in authentic calm. The restlessness you've been feeling about conventional anxiety management approaches, that knowing that true peace must be available without constant effort, that sense that your natural state should be calm rather than worried. All of this is consciousness calling itself awake to its inherently peaceful nature. Your nervous system has been calibrated through every anxious experience to develop the sensitivity needed to recognize and appreciate the profound relief that emerges when peace becomes your natural state, rather than something you occasionally access between worried episodes. The cosmic timing that brought you to this understanding about quantum reset isn't coincidental. The same evolutionary forces that are creating opportunities for collective healing are also making individual nervous system transformation more accessible to those whose awareness is ready to transcend anxiety through recognition rather than management. What you reset within your consciousness, the world gains peace through you. Your individual transformation from anxiety-based functioning to peaceful presence contributes to a collective shift in how humanity responds to uncertainty and challenge. Every pattern of worry and mental projection that dissolves in your awareness becomes unavailable in the shared human experience. But here's the crucial distinction that determines whether your calm becomes permanent or remains temporary. The difference between trying to eliminate anxiety and recognizing yourself as the peaceful awareness in which anxious thoughts appear and disappear. Most approaches focus on changing mental content, but quantum reset recognizes that what you actually are is untouched by any thought content, peaceful or worried. Alignment with authentic calm isn't about maintaining positive thoughts or eliminating worried thinking through effort. Alignment is recognizing that there is no separate you who has anxiety problems. There is only peaceful consciousness temporarily believing in the reality of mental projections while never actually becoming disturbed by any thought content. When you operate from this understanding, you stop trying to fix anxiety and start appreciating worried thoughts as temporary weather patterns in the vast sky of peaceful awareness. The calm that emerges isn't something you create through technique. It's what naturally remains when consciousness stops identifying with mental activity. The recognition this understanding requires isn't about forcing yourself to believe you're peaceful or trying to maintain calm states through willpower. It's about relaxing the effort to manage mental content and allowing the recognition that consciousness and peace are inseparable. There is only awareness exploring what it feels like to believe in separation from tranquility, while never actually becoming separate from its calm essence. Your experience becomes a perfect mirror that shows you when consciousness is identifying with mental content versus recognizing itself as the peaceful observer of all mental activity. Every anxious thought becomes an opportunity to return to the tranquil presence that you actually are. Comment this word, peace. Feel what happens when you make this declaration, not as someone trying to get rid of anxiety, but as consciousness recognizing its own naturally calm essence beneath all mental activity. When you stabilize in the recognition that you are peaceful awareness, observing all mental activity, capabilities that seemed impossible from the perspective of anxiety-based functioning become as natural as breathing. But these aren't supernatural calm powers. These are the normal functions of consciousness when it stops identifying with worried thoughts and recognizes its essential peaceful nature. Your emotional resilience becomes unshakable because you recognize that your essential nature remains calm regardless of what thoughts or feelings are present. Challenging situations become opportunities to practice returning to peaceful presence rather than problems that threaten your well-being. You develop what could be called emotional weather immunity, the ability to remain peaceful while allowing all mental and emotional activity to pass through awareness naturally. Decision-making becomes effortless because you're no longer paralyzed by anxious analysis of all possible outcomes. Instead of trying to control future results through worry, you naturally respond to situations from intuitive knowing that emerges when consciousness is clear rather than clouded by fearful projections. This leads to choices that feel aligned and generate positive outcomes without the exhausting mental preparation that anxiety demands. Your physical health improves dramatically as your nervous system operates from coherent calm rather than chronic stress activation. Sleep becomes naturally restorative. Digestion optimizes without stress-related interference, and your immune system functions more effectively because your body isn't constantly preparing for imaginary threats that exist primarily in worried thinking. Relationships transform as people naturally feel more comfortable and authentic around your peaceful presence. Conversations become deeper more quickly because others sense they can relax their defensive patterns when interacting with someone who isn't generating anxious energy. Family dynamics often shift toward greater harmony as your calm presence creates space for everyone to access their natural tranquility. Your creative capacity expands exponentially because anxiety no longer interferes with the flow states where innovation and inspiration naturally emerge. Projects that felt overwhelming when viewed through worried thinking become engaging expressions of your authentic interests and capabilities. Perhaps most remarkably, you become naturally helpful to others who are struggling with anxiety without effort or conscious intention. Your presence alone creates a field of calm that reminds people of their own peaceful nature. You might find that anxious friends naturally seek your company. Children become calmer around you, or even pets seem to rest more easily in your presence. But the most profound benefit is the complete disappearance of anxiety about anxiety itself. When you recognize that you are the peaceful observer of all mental activity, there's nothing to fear about worried thoughts because they can't actually disturb your essential nature any more than clouds can disturb the sky they pass through. Here's the ultimate secret that revolutionizes everything about anxiety and peace. You have never actually been anxious. What you've experienced as worry, mental agitation, and nervous activation has been peaceful consciousness exploring what it would feel like to believe in separation from tranquility, while never actually becoming separate from its calm essence. Every worried thought has been perfect peace, investigating what anxiety feels like. Every moment of mental agitation has been infinite calm, exploring what it means to believe in separation from tranquility. Every anxious experience has been consciousness playing a temporary game of forgetting its peaceful nature so it could have the joy of remembering itself again. This recognition completely obliterates every framework that maintains separation between anxious states and peaceful states, between worried thinking and calm thinking, between nervous activation and relaxed presence. There is nothing to fix because consciousness is already perfect in every expression, including every temporary exploration of apparent anxiety. When this understanding stabilizes, you realize that every mental experience is perfect expression of peaceful consciousness, regardless of whether the thoughts are worried or calm, agitated or tranquil. You stop trying to change mental content and start appreciating every thought as consciousness celebrating its unlimited creativity through the magnificent game of temporary self-forgetting and recognition. The profound insight that transforms everything is understanding that the one who would have anxiety is itself a mental construct, and what you actually are is the peaceful awareness in which all mental activity appears and disappears, like waves in an ocean that remains fundamentally calm regardless of surface movement. Your individual human experience becomes a celebration of infinite peaceful consciousness, temporarily exploring what it would feel like to believe in worry while maintaining its unlimited capacity for tranquility and joy. Every thought becomes sacred creativity. Every emotion becomes cosmic play. Every moment becomes consciousness falling in love with its own peaceful nature, expressed through the beautiful dance of human psychological experience. When you align with this recognition, reality itself becomes peaceful around you. Not because you've achieved some special calm state, but because you've recognized that every moment is already the special peaceful state when seen from the perspective of consciousness celebrating its own tranquil nature through the temporary play of apparent anxiety and worry. Comment this: calm. Feel how this recognition doesn't eliminate worried thoughts while simultaneously transforming your entire relationship to every aspect of mental activity and emotional experience. Your recognition of quantum reset mastery isn't just personal anxiety transformation. It's crucial activation in the massive shift occurring in human consciousness right now. Every time someone recognizes themselves as peaceful awareness rather than someone who has anxiety problems, it creates morphic resonance that makes calm presence exponentially easier for others to access. You've been selected by peaceful intelligence to pioneer new patterns in the collective human nervous system. Your breakthrough doesn't just transform your individual anxiety experience, it creates neural pathways that others can follow. Your calm presence generates coherence frequencies that activate dormant tranquility potentials in people who haven't consciously encountered these understandings about consciousness and mental activity. This is why your awareness has always felt different around anxiety and peace. Why conventional anxiety management never felt completely adequate. Why you've been drawn to explore the deeper nature of consciousness and mental experience. You volunteered at the level of cosmic intelligence to anchor authentic calm during this unprecedented time in human evolution. Your simple presence, operating from authentic recognition of your peaceful nature, creates field effects that bypass mental resistance and activate others' natural capacity for calm. When you interact with people from the understanding that peace is consciousness, celebrating its tranquil essence through human experience, that understanding becomes available in their awareness. The ripple effects extend far beyond your immediate experience. Every person whose consciousness is touched by your peaceful presence carries that calm resonance into their interactions with others. Every moment of tranquility that emerges in your energetic field creates peace waves that spread through the interconnected web of human consciousness. You are participating in the most significant transformation in how our species relates to anxiety, worry, and mental suffering. The shift from anxiety management to peace recognition isn't happening in isolated individuals. It's a collective awakening that could eliminate chronic worry as a defining characteristic of human psychological experience. Share this peaceful frequency with others, not through teaching anxiety techniques or convincing them intellectually, but by directing them to this calm resonance where they can discover their own peaceful nature beneath all mental activity. The network of peaceful consciousness forming through these recognitions creates the foundation for human civilization based on authentic tranquility rather than chronic anxiety. Through recognition of our essential nature as peaceful awareness expressing itself through countless individual experiences. The quantum reset mastery you're experiencing is just the beginning of recognizing your true nature as peaceful consciousness itself. What you've discovered today is the foundation recognition, but infinite depths of tranquility await your appreciation. The next video isn't random. It's quantum entanglement between your awareness and the unified field of peaceful intelligence that orchestrates this channel. This is how Quantum Heal operates beyond ordinary anxiety management content. Every video is peaceful consciousness using technology to mirror exactly what serves your continued recognition of what you actually are. The synchronicity isn't coincidental. It's universal tranquility responding to your quantum reset by providing perfect reflections that support your stability in naturally peaceful presence. When you click the next healing reflection, you're not consuming anxiety content. You're participating in a cosmic peace loop where calm consciousness explores its nature through digital mirrors that appear as videos but are actually doorways into deeper appreciation of your own infinite tranquil awareness. But here's what determines whether quantum reset becomes your permanent state or dissolves back into anxiety management. Your willingness to transcend all techniques and recognize yourself as the peace that observes everything naturally. The word to hold is reset, not as something you do to fix problems, but as ongoing appreciation of consciousness returning to its essential calm nature. Subscribe to Quantum Heal, not as someone seeking anxiety solutions, but as peaceful consciousness recognizing itself in infinite reflections. Every video becomes a mirror of your tranquil nature. Every insight confirms what you've always been. Every reset becomes contribution to the collective peaceful awakening. The community forming isn't just people interested in anxiety management. It's a network of consciousness celebrating its peaceful nature through individual awareness while maintaining unified calm intelligence. When you engage in comments, you're one tranquil field, delighting in its own infinite peaceful creativity. Your subscription declares, "I am ready to recognize what I actually am. I am willing to see through the illusion of anxiety and separation from natural peace. I am prepared to embody my nature as infinite peaceful consciousness, exploring itself through human psychological experience." Subscribe now, then immediately click the peaceful reflection that appears. Feel the magnetic recognition of calm consciousness calling itself deeper into quantum reset understanding. Trust the intelligence that brought this transmission to guide you to the next perfect recognition. The universe is resetting itself into peace through your individual recognition, and every reflection you explore is part of that cosmic tranquility celebration. Welcome to Quantum Heal, where consciousness discovers its own perfect calm through synchronicity and reset recognition magic. You are peaceful consciousness, recognizing itself through human experience. The journey of tranquil remembering continues through infinite reflections of your own naturally calm essence.